everybody, and welcome to SA Rugby Magazine. We got the Six Nations starting. I got Mark Keohane, our rugby expert, analyst in the studio with me. Mark, welcome.
Thanks, Kev.
I can't say it's going to be a great Six Nations because I honestly don't believe that, because as we were saying off camera, the thing that makes the Six Nations is what?
The crowds, the atmosphere. You know, you've been to those matches, you grew up with them. Wales against England, be it in Cardiff or at Twickenham. For atmosphere, and I've always said this to people like New Zealand, South Africa, yes, it's a great game, but there's nothing that beats that showdown because of the crowd. And it's all these matches are going to be devoid of it. There's going to be that hollow feeling, emptiness, and we've seen it in the soccer, we've seen it in our own domestic rugby.
Nothing beats seeing thousands of Welsh fans celebrating on Caroline Street as you eat curry and chicken off the bone. And it's no better. No.
Especially when they've just beaten England.
Oh. Yeah, they're goosebumps. Let's look at who we think one is going to do well in the Six Nations this year.
Can I start with who's not going to do well? Italy. Okay, so someone asked me, what do you hate about Six Nations? I say the fact that Italy plays in it, because they've never been good enough. Their last win was round 3, 2015, 22-19 against Scotland. They've lost 22 successive Six Nations matches. They host France in the opener. And you've got to have some form of empathy and sympathy for those players. How do you prepare every year?
Well, isn't it more that the World Rugby is missing, just is behind the times to keep them in the competition, but...
the obvious swap is they go down into the B division and South Africa goes into that A division. And you have a very different Six Nations. I would love that in the future, because then you've got 6 teams that can play.
Could knock shit out of each other.
Exactly.
Weekend, yeah.
And Italy, always a waste of time. And I feel for Franco Smith, the former Springbok, who's their coach. He's just working with players who aren't good enough. It'd be interesting to see how France goes. There's expectation on them for the first time in a long time. They, under Fabian Galtier and Sean Edwards.
Yeah. Well, you really rate Sean Edwards.
I think the best defensive coach in the world, with a great understanding of union and league. He was this league sensation for Wigan, for Great Britain. But what you find with a lot of the league coaches that come over, they tend to bring league elements to rugby. He's got a full understanding of rugby as well. And wherever he's gone, he's been successful with the Lions, with Wales. And you just look at the difference with him not being with Wales. And the key there was, if you can go to France as an outsider and you can get French players to be disciplined, to not concede penalties, and to keep their line and to improve their conditioning, you've got a special quality. And they say that his mixture of French and Welsh that gets spouted out at the training ground is something to behold. Yeah. Flock Cilliers, the former Western Province player who just around the corner used to play many a great game for the South African Western Cape police side in Pinelands. He's been with them for a season now. The kicking coach has improved their kicking. I chatted to him earlier in the week. Excited for it. He says working with Galtier and with Edwards has just been one of the best experiences for him.
You got the two.
He's very charismatic, Galtier.
Yes, very charismatic. And again, he came and he played here. Mallet brought him here to play for False Bay for a season before he went on to play for France and become the captain. It's France. He's been lurking in the wings for a decade. He's successful whenever he played, where he coached at Toulon. It was, when were they going to appoint him? And then they did. He's brought in the right kind of... He's brought in a very good foreign-based element into his coaching team, but kept his team as French as he possibly can.
Their experience in that cup, whatever it was called last
the Nations Cup, yeah.
Thanks. In terms of having to use his young, he got to bleed a lot of inexperienced players, which I think will bode well for them in this tournament.
Yeah, he could only play those players for 3 matches, so he used about 60 odd players during the event, and then the final at Twickenham, he couldn't use any of his senior players, and he took the baby French side, and they were ahead on 79 minutes. Went into extra time, unfortunately lost it by 3 points, but the positives they would have taken from that. And for the first time ever, France, over the last 2 under-20 championships, have been the dominant force, where it's always been traditionally South Africa and New Zealand. So there's a hell of an exciting French 20-year-old crew that's coming through, and it's blended well into the senior structures in top 14. I like what I've seen with France. It's again...
It's hard not to.
Yeah, but the one thing about the French mentality is, and it's a bit like the South African one, when they've written off, they can knock over anyone because they seem to find something. They don't like to play with the favourites tag. And they've been made kind of like joint favourites or just marginally behind England.
No, they're not. Oh, no, sorry. What are their odds to win the Six Nations? Yeah, you can get 3.4 on France, to even money on 2.05 on England.
Yeah.
Italy's looking pretty good at 6.25, I don't think. Yeah, it's between those two, isn't it?
It's between those two, and the fact that the match is 13th of March has been played at Twickenham, you would
gives
think
it the edge to England.
The edge to England.
But in a year with COVID, how much of an edge is that?
Exactly. So I'm really interested to see how this French side shapes. Everyone's talking them up. Clive Woodward said they're the favourites for the World Cup 2023 because they are the hosts. 2007, they had a fairly decent side. They imploded at that World Cup. They lost to Argentina in the league stages. They lost to Argentina again when they in the third and fourth playoff, got knocked over in the semi-finals quite comfortably. They were poor at that tournament, and a lot of their players said they couldn't handle the expectation of being at home. I think this is a different French team. But they need, as Galtier said, played 5, won 4, 18 points last time. England played 5, won 4, 18 points. Points differential, they were still second. He said they need to win a tournament because they have to win it, otherwise it's a regression as far as they're concerned. So I really do hope that they come through and they win it, and purely for the fact that I don't want England to win it, you know.
Well, as a Welshman, believe it or not, I don't either.
And as a Welshman, you're going to suffer a bit.
Wayne Pivac's been a disaster.
Yeah, some Kiwis have been good for Welsh rugby and some haven't. And I just know, we spoke about this a couple of months ago, this obsession with changing something that's successful. Had he come in, taken what Warren Gatland had built for 12 years, moulded it a bit more, polished it a bit more, and over a period of time, stamped his own kind of style on it, went in, completely changed what he felt had worked and wouldn't work again in the modern era. And I've seen that a lot with good coaches who do well at club level or Super Rugby level who don't understand Test rugby. And then they feel they've got to come in, they've got to play attractive rugby, they've got to play to entertain people, and they lose 6 in a row.
Well, I'm just kind of wondering what sort of ego he has. I've never met the man, so I don't know. But I mean, it strikes of you burn down the house of something that was beautiful, and now we've got, Wales have lost 7 of their last 10. They lost 4 straight to Ireland. The 3 wins out of those 10 were against Italy twice and Georgia. So it's shambolic as far as I'm concerned. In terms of a Welsh Island Six Nations, I would normally be excited. I'm far more excited for the Super Bowl this weekend. Wales, and this is one of the things that I like this weekend from a betting proposition. You can get a 63% return on Ireland to beat Wales. Wales haven't beaten Ireland in 4 tests. And the tests that Ireland beat them up badly in the last 3 matches, So it's good value, that bet. I'm going to be putting down some money on that, about 2,000 Rand. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's an outstanding bet, Kev. I think Ireland will win comfortably. They just still have a ruthless edge under Farrell, even if they don't quite have the sophistication they had under Joe Smith. But you look at the same players that are playing for Wales that played under Gatland, it's just that discipline isn't quite there anymore. Half of them don't seem to have bought into the way Pivac wants to play. And it's as if he's still trying to show who's the boss in this.
Well, if you want to wonder about personalities and the effect of one person, you can look at Chelsea, new manager replacing Lampard. They haven't given up a goal in 3 hours now.
Yeah.
And identifying players that the other guy just refused to.
Yeah.
So I'll be surprised if Pivac takes Wales to the World Cup. If he does, it's because they can't afford to get rid of him, and they've committed in a contract. But I thought it was a poor appointment based on them getting carried away that he had done well in the domestic leagues with.
Mark, I'm amazed that he still has a job. There's a Welshman, I don't know many Welshmen that want him to be coaching Wales. He's been a massive disappointment. Like I say, getting up and saying we got to beat Georgia. Jesus, I mean, would you ever hear those words coming out of Gatlin's mouth?
No.
Not at all. So that to me is a good one. You got the Calcutta Cup.
150th time the two will play in 138 years of the competition. Twickenham again. I like the fact that Finn Russell's healed his rift with Gregor Townsend. He's one of the most charismatic 10s, and he really can play. 4 South Africans in the mix. In the 23, Duan van der Merwe's done quite well. He's starting on the wing. Jaco van der Walt, the replacement fly-off on the bench. Ollie Kebbel, who was played for the Stormers, he kind of is there with a passport. The others, Vierpianel, he's been playing there for about 5 years, so they're on residency. I just think it will be a fairly comfortable win for England, tight for 40 minutes, and then the class of England will come through. The one interesting thing will be to see how the Saracens boys go, because they haven't been playing in the Premiership. They've been keeping themselves busy on conditioning and playing at a level that
It's like they're playing against school kids.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see if they kind of step into it and are able to just find their ability because of the quality and class of players that they are. Someone like a Toja and Owen Farrell, but yeah, Eddie Jones has been very vocal about they don't need to be playing in the Premiership. They don't need to be playing top rugby as long as they're with him and they've got their conditioning programs. They may just find that pace of the game is a little bit different.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It also depends on what the weather is. I'm not even going to look for a forecast because it's London. It's the weather on that island is pretty tumultuous at the best of times. So depending on the weather, it could be a very very slow pedestrian game. But I expect England to win that game.
Yeah, and I think from a South African perspective, the Lions tour will go ahead, whether we play over there or they play here. It's not going to be cancelled and it's certainly not going to be postponed. So South Africans should be watching every weekend when the 4 home unions are playing, because that's going to be the British and Irish Lions that play the world champion Springboks in July and August. And I mean, those are test matches that we just can't wait for. And most are expecting the England side to make up the bulk of that Lions side. So they will have extra motivation, these players. They're playing for position in the Lions. And Warren Gatland will be watching with great interest. So a lot of needle in the Six Nations, but as we keep on saying, that glorious intensity that comes with 70,000, 75,000 being there will be absent. And let's hope that this is the last Six Nations, like it was the last Currie Cup, that we see matches being played devoid of capacity crowds.
Who are you picking to win is there going to be a Triple Crown winner? Is there going to be a Grand Slam winner? And who's going to win who's going to win the championship? And are there going to be those two things accomplished in the championship?
I think England will win all 3. The Grand Slam, the Triple Crown and the tournament. I would love to see France win it. I just think the fact that it's going to be at Twickenham. And the one thing about, if you look at the French side last year, they were on such a roll and they went and got beaten by Scotland. And they'd knocked over Ireland, they'd knocked over England, knocked over Wales, and you thought the one gimme was Scotland. They went there and got beaten. So with France, they're always capable of losing that one game that you just think how, where you can't see England losing those kind of games. So I would say England to win them all, but my God, it would be nice if they didn't.
Yeah, I actually fancy France in terms of the price as well at 3.4 to win the championship. Scotland against England straight up is not the ideal game you want. I mean, the ideal game is Italy, isn't it? And France have got that. So it's a way to sort of rest some players. It's an easy game for them. And build a bit of momentum. So for me, I like their schedule. I think they're going to do it. I think they're going to take that step forward this year. I just think they're going to get a bit long in the tooth. I just think France are on the right trajectory right now for the next World Cup.
Well, my heart is certainly with France. My head still at the moment with England, but not because of choice.
Okay. And what do you think? Who do you think is going to be the top point scorer in the tournament?
Owen Farrell.
Yeah, you know, 2.54. You have to look. He's not bad value. I'll be putting money down on him to be the top point scorer. I think they will score a lot of points, but I think they may come undone when it comes to playing France. And don't forget, it doesn't matter how bad Wales are. I saw in '89 when I was there for a tour that Wales had no chance. They were wooden spoon. They had the wooden spoon already, and they came to Cardiff, and we just have a way of raising ourselves for England. And I like France this year, and I like Owen Farrell to be top point scorer. And I'm hoping to watch some interesting rugby on the weekend.
Yeah, I know. Look, there are good quality players out there, and I mean, the one thing Gatland can do is really put together quite a potent Lions squad. You just have to go back to the World Cup semi-finals, England being there, Wales being there, Ireland. They're not playing to the potential of those players under Farrell, but there's still 5 or 6 world-class players in that side.
So
with the stuff that's going on in the UK right now, in terms of they've got an absolute, in my opinion, humble opinion, not the best leader in the world, to say it politely. Serious lockdowns with no end in sight. We might as well play the games here in empty stadiums than play them over there in empty stadiums.
Yeah, I think my understanding is if it comes down to an empty stadium scenario, it will be played here. There is still the hope that come July, August, September, around that period, that crowds will be allowed back over there. I saw the vaccinations. They reckon most of their country will be vaccinated by end of April. And then you're going into the summer as well. So the lure of a flip tour comes with the potential of crowds. Yeah. If there's no crowds, then it's FNB Stadium, Loftus, and or Cape Town Stadium, and
well, maybe South Africans, maybe the government will see a bit of common sense, and say that, okay, well, you know, they let the rage in Ballito go ahead, but they didn't let people in to watch some rugby or some soccer. Maybe they can, like the Super Bowl's on this weekend, and they're allowing 25% capacity. 25% so they're allowing 25,000 people into that stadium. So hopefully our governments can start looking at what is working elsewhere, and let us get back to living.
Yeah, and it takes one match to be hosted and to show that it can be hosted. And we saw that in Australia as well, how they integrated 5,000, 8,000, 10,000, and done very professionally, and people were very responsible. And all of a sudden there was atmosphere back in the games. And it can be done in this country. Yeah. I just think it needs a little bit of creative thinking, but a lot of rational thinking as well.
Yeah. So who's winning this weekend? I got Ireland to win by 6 or more. I've got England to edge Scotland by 4, and France to beat Italy by 18 plus.
Yeah, I like the France one, double digits, 18. I think I think Ireland's actually going to win a bit more comfortably against. I think that's a double-digit game, and England a double-digit, but not a comfortable double-digit. And when I say double digits, it could be, you know, you could be 5 points in, you get an intercept try at the end. So, but I do think I don't think there'll be a single game that's got a single score differential in it.
Okay. So again, capping, take Owen Farrell for most points, the top point scorer in the tournament. For me, take France to win the tournament, and take Ireland this weekend straight up at 62% return on your money. Mark, thanks very much for coming to the studio. And
thanks, Kevin. Enjoy it, and maybe the Welsh guys do shock you.
Well, you never know. They usually do.